Nobody's ever called
I think if you want to begin wrapping up your conversations, can you hear this? Oh, hello, hello, hello. Any volume? Hello, hello. Can I get everybody's attention? Is this going to work? Okay, there we go. Sounds a little bit better. Great. Well, welcome to this meeting. We're going to go ahead and get started on time because we've only got an hour and a half, and I know a lot of you got a lot of things you want to say, so we want to make sure we have time for everybody. This meeting was really organized to allow some opportunity for citizen input regarding the Town Hall expansion project. And this is on two here. Quickly, we're just going to let you see what the process has been, let you see the latest design, which really hasn't changed from what's been out there for quite some time, and it's also over here, but we'll show it up here in a second. And then before we start taking the input, we're going to talk about what are the next steps, and then what does that look like from here. So this is, the expansion of the town hall has been under discussion for quite some time, and the last discussion, some of you may have been involved in, but it was July 11th, the town board meeting. And that's where it became evident that the communication with the public just was not quite what the town board thought it should be, and felt that there should be more community input on this. So that's why this meeting was organized. So this was scheduled in this time frame, right at the end of August. So it was after school started and people were back from vacations to hopefully catch a lot of people, so it's really good to see the numbers here tonight. So I am Chris Strapinski, and I have done some work for the town before and helping with different planning processes in that, so I'm just happy to be here. The town board had asked me to facilitate this meeting, just I'm no stake in the outcome of anything that goes on, so I'm just here to listen and capture your input and pass it along to them. Your mayor and some of your board of trustees are here at the meeting, and they're here just to listen tonight. They just want to hear what you have to say, so you'll know that they'll be hearing that directly. I'll also be taking notes and passing those along to the town board at the end of the meeting, the results of the meeting. The staff is represented by your town manager, Matt Magley, so he'll be able to answer questions if there are things that come up during the evening. And I also want to say about your board of trustees and that they are the final decision makers in all of this. So this input, along with everything else they have to consider, goes to them, and then they ultimately make decisions on what this all turns out to be. The architect for the project, Liz Hallis, is also here from Anderson Hallis Architects, and she can help with if there are any questions about the particular design elements of the plan. So. The plan under consideration.
Excuse me. I'm sorry to interrupt. My name's Ross Morgan. I live just down at 3rd and Cold Creek. But would you mind pointing out and introducing any members of the town board and staff that are here, so that those of us who are not
Sure.
already introduced know who they are?
Yeah, and why don't I just have them stand and introduce themselves, because I think they're spread out here, so.
I'm trustee Joe Sorelli.
And I'm a trustee Rita Dozell.
Trustee Chris Hansen.
Oops. Sorry. Okay, we got trustee Chris Hansen over here, and
Mayor.
I'm Matt Magley, town manager.
okay, very good.
All? Martin?
I'm
Okay.
here also. I'm the assistant town manager. My name is Martin Took.
Martin's not allowed to go home.
He lives here. Any other staff?
Finance director, Paul Mellis.
And the architects?
We did. Liz Hallis.
Thank you.
Okay, did we catch everybody?
I think so.
Great, thank you for that. Okay, so this is just for your benefit, what the process has been to date. I'm not going to run through it all. You can read what's up there and see kind of what's been going on. But there have been quite a few meetings in that. And as I said, the town board, when it got to the July 11th meeting, decided that there should be more opportunity for public input, and so organized this particular meeting. So this is the plan, and again, these are over here as well, but the outside rendering. This is the addition on the inside. Again, this plan was presented pretty much in the same way. June 1st, I believe, was the community meeting where that was out there. So you're seeing basically the same thing that you saw then if you were involved in those processes. Okay. So the plan is being pursued because there's a need to improve customer service within the town. So there have been issues raised about just how challenging it is with the meeting or the building setup that the town is working out of quite a few buildings here on site in that. So to improve customer service and to maximize the one-stop shopping opportunity for people so they're not having to follow people around from place to place and figure out where documents are and all those kinds of things. And also the need to provide more community meeting space in town. So there are two things that were driving this process. The land to the west here was acquired for the purpose of expanding this building, and so that's owned by the city already. And the funding has been identified in the capital planning budget for this project to be completed this year and next year. So that's just basic information about the project. So what we're going to do next is take your input on what should this look like? What are your concerns? What are your interests? What are the things you like about it? So that can all be passed on to the board in an upcoming meeting. So this will go back to the board, and they will consider what has been said here, along with everything else that they have in relation to this project. But then their direction could include from there finalizing the project design for construction, incorporating design changes as they determine makes sense based on the input that they've gotten, and could also include additional community dialogue at that point. So those are all possibilities that are out there.
Hey, Chris, I think drawings that put this into perspective with the neighborhood, I'm seeing lots of pictures of drawings on the neighborhood.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of people here don't know the neighborhood. So are there photographs or some overhead pictures of how this looks?
Yeah, we don't have any here tonight.
The neighborhood?
We don't have any here tonight.
Could we do
Sorry.
a Google map update of some sort so people that don't know the area can see what this looks like? Everybody's issue is going to be the perspective of the neighborhood. So without the perspective of the neighborhood, I think that takes a lot away from what we all need to see.
Yeah.
Whether a Google map or a Google overhead that shows.
I don't know if we have the ability.
Yeah, we can
Can we do?
that would be really helpful, I think, for
Okay.
folks to see.
But I need help. Thank you. Thank you, Martin. I'll let you work on that. So just tonight, as far as just from a facilitator standpoint, some very basic ground rules on how we want to do this. First of all, everybody's input has merit. We want to hear from everybody, but we don't want you to dwell on the same point over and over and over again. So if you agree with something that somebody else has already said, if you just please say that and then move on to another issue, that would be great. We want you to all to participate with the number of people in the room. I am going to call on you because I think that'll just be easier to get the input out there. So if you just let me know if you've got something to say, then we'll get that. We want you to fully participate, but we don't want you to interrupt other people when they're talking. So I'll be managing that. We want you to be sure to get your input in, but we are going to manage this meeting around that hour and a half time frame, so I'm going to keep moving things along. The decision making, no decisions are being made tonight. It's just input that's being taken. The final decisions will be made by the trustees, and your input will be summarized and provided to them, and again, they're here listening as well. So with that, oh, good, you got that up there. Very good. We're here to listen, and I'm going to start the conversation with a broad question, which should just allow opportunity for you to begin giving your input. And then if we hit upon a topic area of concern or that people want to have a lot of input on from different perspectives, we might stick on that topic for just a little bit before we move on to another one. We can always come back to that and add information if you've got thoughts to do that. So with that, we're just going to start by saying, under the presumption that this is happening, this is going to go here, this is your opportunity, really, to bring, to help shape that plan and to maximize what the things are that you like about the plan, or that would be the good things for doing that, and minimize any negative kind of concerns that you have. So we want you to bring up both of those. And again, I'll be taking notes and go from there. Now, as far as microphone, do we need people to move this around? Okay. Then I'm going to need, as I'm going to speak. Okay, so I saw a hand back here.
Do I need a microphone?
You do.
You do. For the recording, always, thank you.
All right, thanks. My name is Ross Morgan. I moved out here in 1975, and so I've been here a little over 40 years and seen a lot of changes, needless to say, over those years. When I first got here, Superior was a quiet little town, 90 houses down by the creek, and it's obviously blossomed into what it is today. Some of the changes have been a little traumatic over the years. With the advent of the Sura and Tiff area that developed the Costco and Target shopping center, it felt like a huge encroachment on our little old town, along with Rock Creek taking place over the hill, and the political will from the 90 of us that lived down here having shifted that direction. And so we feel a little bit overrun at times, those of us that live in original Superior. And my point of view on this town hall expansion in a residential area is that it's yet another encroachment on a residential area where people have made their homes expecting it to be a quiet neighborhood, and now that's being threatened yet again with even more encroachment by a development that, in my opinion, doesn't need to take place. The original plan for the new town center included, what was it, Daryl, 18,000?
Originally in 2007, it was 18,000 square feet.
Somewhere between 18,000 and 22,000 square feet of municipal usage in the new town center. And those of us down here in original town all thought that was great, that we would now have a town center that really incorporated the town center being headed up by a town hall and the associated commercial area that would go with that would draw. And so my opinion is that this property right here is very valuable, could easily be marketed as a professional office building, for instance, and the vacant land that was acquired to the west could then be sold off also as the low-density residential that it was originally intended for. And that would be the buffer between the homes that exist there and the commercial business here. And that hopefully that sale would help to offset the cost of developing, as I asked Clint, our mayor, at the last meeting we had about this, what's the difference in cost between developing over there versus here? And it seemed to me that it was 5 million versus 3. Am I wrong, Clint? Okay, so if this property could be sold for anywhere approaching 2 million or even 1 million, it seems to me that it makes perfect sense to modify the usage of this land here in this building to actually create a town center in the new town center where I think it belongs.
Thank you. Okay. Go ahead.
No, I'm.
So you don't have that. Volunteer.
No, I don't think my point is productive right now.
Okay, so I am capturing that on a sheet. We're not going to debate or talk about whether or not the project belongs here or not. I'm going to note that your comment was that you don't think it is, but we want to get on to
You
presuming.
captured what I said there, though, on the sheet.
Well, we will pass along this message, and that there will be, whatever happens to that information, we'll be able to pass that along. Yes.
I would actually like to paraphrase a little bit, because as you recapped, I understood you to say that this development was going to happen, and there was no discussion about that this evening, and we are just discussing how it should look. Am I correct?
Yeah, what I'm saying is that what we're here to talk about tonight is how should this occur down here. I didn't say I did say we're not going to discuss or debate whether or not it goes here or not. If you have comment that you don't think it should go here, I will note that comment.
Please.
But what we want to talk about also, we want to make sure that people get their chance to say, if it's going to be here, what do you want it to be? We want to make sure we capture that.
You need to capture Ross's comment, because that's not there. Ross clearly said he thinks it goes across the street, not here. So I'd love to see that up there. So if we're discussing that.
Great. I'm Lars Morales at 908 Maroon Peak Circle. I just want to put a little perspective on this process here. I was part of ProStack, the Parks and Recreation and Trail Committee, for several years, many years, and the build out of a park would take about 3 years or something just to get approval. And what we did was we went door to door and actually surveyed people in person, knocking on doors and whatnot all over to get ideas. And you can see the construction going on up at the El Dorado K through 8. And so I would just like to see that sort of process happen here, because this is kind of a small group. You're not even though it's an outreach, you're not getting a full participation. Just to, as before we get started on all this and that and the details, we need to look at participation from our residents.
Lars.
My name's Louise Bennett, and I want to give my 2 cents. I realize that I'm not I realize that I'm not realistic to expect the board and the mayor to feel the way I feel about Old Town and the new addition to the town hall. Old Town isn't where you live, and you can't imagine like having been born here like I was. I know that you are looking at it from the additional room you need for all your needs. Well, I see housing developments closing in on all sides of Old Town. More people, more cars, more of everything. I know the town center was supposed to be the place for the town hall and the police station, so I know it is an option. I guess I would like you to sincerely put yourselves in our shoes. Imagine that the town hall addition and police station would be moving closer to your homes, and the added traffic and problems. Imagine new developments on all sides of you closing in, changing the quality of life as we've known it here in Superior. and taking away the peaceful residential neighborhood that we love. And I just feel that the town center would be the best place for it.
I think quality of life is being diminished down here considerably. I think that needs to go on board, please. Okay.
May I add one brief comment to follow up? Following up on Suzanne's comment, that it seems that this is being presented to us as a done deal. I happened to see a video that was produced, I guess, a couple of months ago, that touted the whole project as being a great thing for Superior. And I'm curious as to who produced that, who authorized it, and I just want to register a comment that I found it very condescending and a bit of propaganda, that it seemed to be selling us on an idea that we hadn't even had yet the opportunity to comment on.
I'm Bob McCool, and I live at 312 West Coal Creek Drive. And Daryl and I have been in Original Town since '94, so we haven't been here the many decades that a lot of our neighbors have, but we have gotten to love this area and this town and the people around it. And I'm disappointed. I'd forgotten about that video, Ross. That did begin some of the disappointment, that propaganda that was there. And my disappointment just surrounds a lack of process. Lars alluded to the years we spend looking at parks, the years we spent being thoughtful about the open space that we've purchased, the years we've spent on other development opportunities throughout the town. Years being the important word. And I understand. I've many of you know I've served on a CAC that was more than a mailing list 20 years or 15, 18 years ago, and I've served on Open Space Advisory Committee, the Parks and Recreation Committee, and I was on the Planning Commission for 8 years. So I've heard a lot, and I did. I know that land was acquired for town hall expansion, but I also was very involved in a lot of the discussions around the town center, and I had no doubt in my mind that the intent was to try to get the town hall in the town center. And I think many of us did, and so to find that in April of this year, there's a step-by-step process with a development date of September 1 to begin the expansion shocked all of us, and I'm really glad that that's all slowed down and being pulled back. But again, tonight being presented with this is planned and let's talk about how it looks, I still think is highly premature to invite us in here to talk about something that many of us are opposed to its placement at this point. So I think you're going to hear as much about its placement, and I'd like to capture that as much as possible when you're writing things down, because I think that's what you're going to hear. So I know there is, I'll throw out the $10 million that's split $6 million and $4 million to what Ross alluded to with regards to civic space in the town center. I also know lots of people want to put that money to many different civic uses. Civic use means many different things, from town hall to parks to fields. But I remember planning meeting discussions around that expenditure, and that some of that was towards the town hall. I know we had those discussions. So I think we need to be honest. I'd like our staff and who know what the numbers are to share with everybody what those numbers are and what they can be used for. so that Ross, we can come to that number that Ross alluded to of what is the difference between building a new town hall. Really, what's the difference? If we can market this, if we can sell it, which I'd be shocked if we couldn't. If we could sell the land for single-family residential and work with the town center to find a place to put the town hall. What does that look like? And we're not going to do that. That can't happen in tonight's meeting, and it can't happen in the next 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 board meetings. It's just, again, it's taking the time to be thoughtful about this and just not encroach so much on this neighborhood. And that's why I wanted to bring this map up, because I want people to see that town hall expansion sits in the middle of the neighborhood, and all those little open areas that you see, that's not open space. Those are potentially developable areas, including to the south of original town. That's probably 70 to 110 homes. That's under discussion as of last week. There's 54 over there across from the park that the Google Maps doesn't show there, where it says 8th Avenue and 6th Avenue. There's the RTD park and ride up in the top side, and that is, RTD has, I keep forgetting what the name of the project is, but to build apartments and build other residential development in order to drive transit-oriented development. I knew it would come to me. That's possible. And even just looking around original town at all of the potential infill, which started, right across from Panera Bread there, like 6 homes got thrown up there that give a clear picture of what our land use code, without any discussion, allows people to do. And so I'm harping again that planning this area and looking at our land use code, recognizing what's going to happen to this neighborhood, and be thoughtful about what we do is really important. And slowing down, yes, that probably meant originally let people get back into the groove here after school, but I think really what it means is slow way down, like Lars was indicating, and let's give this the same treatment we do at any other capital improvement project that we do here in town.
My name's Dave Crawford, and I'm over here on West William Street. And I agree with everything that I've heard so far. And just building on that last remark, I find it personally problematic when I'm not given options. And when I'm told that, in this case, the only options that I have are things that I'm not even interested in talking about, what this looks like versus whether it should be there. I feel like I've been, what's the word?
Railroaded.
That's the word. Thank you, Martha. Marcia. So, and I look at this and I see that the town center, it doesn't look like this anymore. So 8th Avenue, 6th Avenue, that's all houses now. And as Bob said, there's going to be apparently potentially 100 plus houses down where the ranch currently is. And we're boxed in here. And if it's not the town's responsibility to bring us in early and have a discussion about whether or not this belongs here or whether it belongs across the street, then I don't know what the town is, what their role is.
Thank you. Well said, Jason.
I'm George Kuffner, and I'm pretty much a lifelong resident here. I've seen a lot of changes. When I was a kid, I helped put the bricks on the firehouse so that we could have a town hall up there. We did. We finally bought this when it came down here. It was great. I think the town hall needs to stay in the original town of Superior. We bought this property out here behind us for expansion. If we would have done it then, we would have saved millions of dollars. The longer we wait, the more it costs us, the more we're going to have to pay in tax. Now, I don't like the homes up there for Remington, but hey, they're there, so let it be. This was bought for us to have a bigger town hall. We need a bigger town hall so we can put everybody in the same building, so we can be a lot meaner and leaner with our tax money. The better we get on controlling our tax money, the less we have to get out of our wallets. So instead of arguing about whether we want it or not, we own the property, Let's use it. Let's discuss what it needs to look like. Why should we go across the street and buy ground from a developer and spend millions of dollars? We already own the property. This has always been good enough for town hall. Well, why not just a little expansion, bring us all into the same building so that we can be a lot leaner on the money? So let's get on with what this meeting is supposed to be, what it's supposed to look like or what it can look like, instead of all this negativity about not wanting it. That's not what this meeting's for. I don't know if people didn't read what it's for or didn't listen to what she said it was for, but it wasn't to come down here and complain about we don't want it here. It was for her to come down here and show us what it could look like options-wise. So let's get on with what the meeting is supposed to be for, not some personal agenda. I mean, I didn't like a lot of things that happened here, but it's here and I live with it. This is still my hometown. So let's get on with what the meeting's supposed to be about and see what we can work out instead of all this negativity. Thank you.
I think we're more concerned than being negative. I'm just going to say that much. I don't think anybody's being negative.
Nope.
There's fear, and people are scared and concerned. I don't think you're being negative. So I'm speaking out of line, but.
Laurel Russell, I live on Maple Street. I totally disagree with George, and I'm also a lifetime resident of this community. One of my first objections is the fact that it's encroaching on a low residential area, just as Ross said. One of the other problems I have with all of this is that for years, as many years as I can remember, when Biella and Menkick were trying to sell their property, it was looked at as our town center going to be, our town hall in the town center. And I don't know where that changed along the way, but I think that's an important issue. I guess that's about all I have to say for now.
Thank you. Actually, could I ask that question? When did it change? When did it change that the idea was that, because it was publicized that City Hall was being looked at to go over to Town Center. When did this change? And when did you all get really serious about creating what you've created now? What's that time lag and gap, and how did we not hear about it?
So I'm just going to respond real quick to the question. Is that okay?
Yep,
Okay.
I was just going to give my perspective of where I thought it changed.
Oh, okay. I can respond after you if you want, yeah.
Patricia Dunham, 3574 here on Peak. I sat through many meetings when we talked about the town center, and I think in the course of those meetings, many people stood up and did not want the civic space to be turned into government space in the sense of that being a town hall or something like that. So I think that's where the sentiment changed. There were a number of those meetings that we were all here, many late nights, the meetings that we had over at Monarch High. That's where the tone changed for people in town saying they didn't want that civic space to be government space.
People in what town?
Thank you.
In what town?
Yeah, Old Town, Rock Creek, Saginaw.
Citizens of
Not down
Superior.
here.
So
Not down here.
as it's been mentioned, the town purchased the land back in 2000 for expansion of town hall. It sat dormant until recently. It was proposed in the 2015 budget to start design work on a town hall this year, starting in 2016. There's been a lot of discussion about, whether it's in the town center or at a current location, what's best, and a lot of things were considered as in those discussions. Patricia's correct that one of the things that was considered was what types of uses would make the most sense in the town center, what benefits the residents the most. And I think one of the thoughts was it would be better to have community uses in the town center rather than government offices. And since the location was already here for town hall, that we would look at expanding town hall at this location. to get started in that process, you know, we first start with the design so people have something to react to, the board has something to react to, and we get an idea of cost, and then we start the process that we're in now. And I would say that 4 of the 6 board members are here tonight, so they, you know, Chris is writing down comments, but they're also here, and it's also being videotaped, so you can also watch it online as well, or for those that aren't here. And the process has slowed down, which is something, reaction to what the board's heard from the community. And, you know, we have an election coming up in November, so the discussions are going to continue, and no decisions have been made. And so we'll have to take everybody's comments into consideration and decide at some point whether it's next year or the year after that, what and where town hall is going to be.
Hi, my name's Ted Chavis, live at 407 South 2nd Avenue. No, 401, sorry. Mom lives at 401. Been here a long time, parents been here. But we are getting that development across the street from us, and there is a space in there that might solve all problems. Is it's still going to be an old town, and you guys are looking for that one area to develop. Why can't that be a town hall? You know, right? Rogersfield be on the east side of the houses that they're putting in, right next to McCaslin. Easy access to get out. Keeps people happy that it's still an old town, and it's not a town center. And it babysits all the people that are coming in over there. Running for mayor next year.
2018, Ted. 2018. Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Diana Laker, and I live in Sagamore, so I'm unfortunately kind of an encroacher, but I'm here to support Old Town neighbors tonight. When we were in the last meeting, we had a deputy here, and he had talked a little bit about the sheriff's substation, like, I guess looking at kind of the disturbance, and that's, to me, a big factor. The gentleman that was here fully admitted that having the sheriff's substation within Town Hall is a big disturbance, and he told us that there'd be people coming in and out all the time. There'd be privacy issues associated with that. Has the town done anything to reach out to the Boulder Sheriff's Department, have them show up at this meeting and talk a little bit about what that type of impact would be, and if it's possible even to take that part out of the town hall and move it somewhere else?
Thanks. So the Sergeant Chamberlain, who's kind of our acting chief here in town for the sheriff's office, was at the last board meeting where this was discussed, and he talked about a lot of those issues. Some of the design has changed so that there's no parking on First, and it's more landscaped area. The offices aren't in the current design for the sheriff's office are still there. They don't hold any, one of the things he said, they don't hold anybody that's arrested. They take them directly to county jail. So you wouldn't have any of that. Officers, usually when they respond to calls, are already on patrol, so they're not in the office when they go. And if they are in the office, they typically do not take off out of the parking space with their lights on and sirens on as well. So some of there would be deputies there, but typically they're out on patrol most of the time.
Okay, because that was just a little different from, and I missed the last board meeting, but the last gentleman who's here was pretty honest about, we do take off going 50 miles an hour, and it's not constant, he admitted, but I'm just bringing up that we had all heard something different at the last meeting, that was just
Hi, Clint Folsom, Mayor. I was at that meeting, and just to clarify, that gentleman was, I think he identified himself as a police officer from Boulder or somewhere. He was not a sheriff's deputy. Where's that?
I think it was in Thornton or Adams County.
Thornton or Adams County, but you know, I'm not sure if he lives here.
Yes,
I'm guessing, okay, so he lives here. Okay. So just to clarify, he was not a sheriff's deputy. He does not work in Superior. He does not Yeah, so I mean, the stories he was relaying were perhaps, you know, due to his own experiences in his own community where he works, but just wanted to clarify that he was not a representative of the sheriff's office. And what Matt said about, you know, about them responding in and out is correct. And I was a reserve deputy here for 13, or I was reserve deputy with Boulder County for 13 years. And yes, so I was a reserve deputy with Boulder County for 13 years and worked in Superior a fair amount. So I've actually worked here as a deputy as well, and you know, very few emergency calls and actually very little time spent in the substations or in the office. Most of the time out on the road.
Daryl McCool, I cannot tell you how disappointed I am that we are looking at basically paint chips and deciding where plants go. I think that we are not at that stage. Back in 2013, the board made a decision to not do anything temporary or permanent back here because they wanted to wait for town center. Now that is where the conversation needs to start. Not up here with these plans and this, we're going to build it here sentiment, because that is not what the bulk of people, the residents of Superior, believed. Most of us believed that it was going across the street. So to have this as part of the discussion, the beginning of this discussion, when we really need to back up very, very far to the 2013 decision to not build or do anything back here and wait for town center. I also think that budgets are concerned. We haven't really seen how much this is going to truly cost. And if we can spend almost $3 million on a pool cover, then I think that we have enough money to go and spend and put it across the street and do it where it was meant to be. And I know there are a lot of people here that don't feel comfortable necessarily speaking, but I'd like to see some way that we can have a show of support for those people that believe that we need to slow this process down. We have petitions signed of people asking for this to be slowed down and to not be considering plans, but be considering whether this is the right place for that to happen. If people feel comfortable, I'd love to see a show of hands.
Slow it down, just slow it down and see if this is really where we want it.
I wanted to just, this isn't a change of opinion, I just wanted to support a couple of things I heard. The idea that, you know, doing something with Rogers Farm and figuring out a solution there, I mean, those are the ideas I'd love to see discussed if they just take some time to do those. I think that was a great thought and worth talking about. And the other thing that came out of a meeting, we met with Mayor Folsom earlier this week, the number of the neighbors in Original Town. One of the things that was raised too is, I mean, we're all pretty law-abiding citizens, but having 7 or 8 or 10 police cars parked across the street from your house, there was one sitting on 4th Avenue just pulling people over, and we were very thankful for that because it's been a problem intersection. But it's a little unnerving to have a police car sitting outside your house, and I don't know what it is, but it just doesn't feel good. And if you're looking out your window at 7 police cars, sitting across the street, and look at Diane shaking her head. She lives right there. She's going to look out her window, go out and report, and there's 7 police cars sitting there. It's just a weird thing to have in a residential area. And when I look around at other places, yeah, there's some that are kind of in residential. Louisville stuck there's pretty much on the corner, away from many things. It doesn't feel very good. So I just wanted to add that to the list.
Melinda Tan. I live at the top of the hill. I have to admit I haven't been really keeping up with the final plans or the developing plans for the town center. But as far as the timeline for this, I suppose I'm a little surprised at how fast we were planning to do this without having a final plan of across the street. We don't really know what it looks like, what it's going to be. We don't even know what the functionality of across the street is going to be. Are we getting the library? Are we getting a community hall? Are we getting, what are we getting over there? And until we know that, and until we have a true center, you can't truly have a plan for a new town hall without knowing what we need. Are we getting a rec center? Are we going to have a huge community space? I was on an arts committee with Daryl. That fell flat because there's no place. We don't have a sense of place yet. And if that is supposed to be developed to give us a place, then what is the purpose of this across the street? I don't think that you can develop this at the risk of not meeting the needs of what's missing over there or potentially doubling the need. It just doesn't make sense. I feel like it's premature and it's very short-sighted. And, looking at this, Superior was short-sighted, right? Our traffic engineers were high. I don't know what the heck was going on, So, we have no idea what that's going to be. So how can you go forward with this concrete plan here when that's a mystery?
Hi, I'm Sandy Hammerly. I live up at the summit at Rock Creek. I guess the piece that gives me a little bit of concern here is that we're looking at an either-or, that we have to build here or we have to build in town center. I absolutely understand the fact that we want to create efficiencies in this town so that when our citizens need to pull a permit or that they can go to the same place to get all the related activities. But just because you need to sign up for a Parks and Recreation program doesn't mean that it necessarily needs to be in the same program, in the same vicinity as where you would go build a building permit. So what I'd like to see the town at least think about is there an option where we can preserve this really cool building and keep it doing what we do? I guess I'm curious, do the residents who currently live in Original Town, do you hate this building being here, and do you hate having Town Hall this close to you? I mean, my sense is I've never heard anybody from Original Town do that. So is there a way we can compromise? We can keep this, we can figure out what are the best uses for this, for our town function, and is there another space that we own property that we can do other things that we need to do, so we don't have our folks spread all over the place, but maybe we have folks here, and maybe we have people up on another piece of property, which we do happen to own, which is a piece of property that's up at the corner of Colton and McCaslin. So let's look and see if there's options other than we move to town center, which I think, I do agree with Patricia that we have heard from residents throughout the last several weeks or last several years that maybe they don't want to see the space in town center used for permits and things like that. They want it used for more things that might be recreation, it might be a library or things like that. But can we look at another space in town that we might be able to consolidate the folks who are scattered all over the community?
Well, it brings it back to having an actual discussion about it and not looking at and reacting to plans. And I think that is really what people want, is to have a real discussion and a plan so that we don't feel it's just being pounded down on us.
Hi, I'm Brian Hill. I live up in the middle of Rock Creek. And the two goals you cited were efficiencies for service delivery and more community meeting space. But over the past couple of months, 3 months, that those have been cited as goals, I've never really seen any data that suggests how an expanded town hall here would improve those services. I don't even know exactly what services are going to be improved. I don't know if it's to service the residents or to service customers of town staff, builders, consultants, what have you. There have been numerous intelligent questions asked over this past 2 or 3 months. I've never really seen them collected and answered. And I'd really like to see that kind of process pursued. I think you could go back to any of the public meetings where people have gotten up and spoken and collect all those questions and asked staff and the board to share what they've discussed over, I don't know, maybe the past 12 months since it came up and was entered into the budget. Thank you. That's it.
Suzanne Sawyer Ratliff. I live at 405 South 3rd Avenue. And I was looking around, but he was sitting right behind me, and I just wrote down the word efficiencies. And I was thinking, oh, I hope Brian Hill is here. And otherwise, I was going to steal your thunder and talk about some of the things you just spoke about. I've also heard at these meetings, heard Brian talk about welcome to the world of technology. And how many of you in your homes or know people who are working remote? People who are working from home all the time. I would like to hear less about expansion of town hall with more office space and more this, that, and the other thing, and a little more what we're going to do technologically for outreach. That is the world we're walking into now. And I think that to spend more money on the on-site kinds of things is not very fiscally responsible. And I love being able to talk this way because I'm probably one of the older citizens in the community. So I do my best to keep up technologically, and I know full well I love to come down to town hall. I like what happens here. Now we vote long distance all the time, by mail and stuff. I miss just coming down to vote. So when we talk about changes, let's look at the fact that we have a lot of change going on. Look at this new way we get to go over to Louisville now. We have to go through how many lights, and we meander around and everything. And I think change is part of what we're all about and what we've come to accept. But I think we have to put in this thing about efficiencies. Now I want to go back, and I should say my presence here in Original Town Superior began in 1979. Probably one of the most gratifying things I got to do was to interact with people up in Rock Creek when we went around with petitions about taxing ourselves for open space. And what I discovered is people from all the communities here have so much in common. It was just unbelievable. So Diane, when you say I live in Sagamore, maybe I'm a little of an outsider. No, I didn't get your name right. You're Diane, and but no, I think this is your issue as much as anyone else's. So what I've tried to do before coming to this meeting tonight is try to think, if I did not live in a regional town, what would I be thinking about? If I were living up in Rock Creek especially, I would be extremely concerned about what's happening here with traffic patterns to be able to get in and out of original town all of the time. Accessibility would be the issue. I would be thinking a lot about the number of surveys that we have filled out. I don't know anybody, when I've talked about what'd you write on the survey, what'd you put down, what's of interest to you, I don't know anybody who was asking for a $2.5 to a $3 million town hall expansion. And I'm offended by that, I have to tell you honestly. I think we are trying to be mean and lean. We live in a different time now where we're counting our pennies a whole lot more than we ever did. And I expect the same of my town staff. And I like the town staff here. People have been so wonderful, and as one of the victims of the flood, I can't say enough about the help and the support that I got. But I think slow it down is part of it. But what are our options? What are the potential ways we can go at this? And what are the needs, not just of original town people? This is not just an original town issue. This belongs to everyone in the community, and I think we need to look at the many different land possibilities and look at what do we want to get out of this. And what's the future about? It's not the town hall that we've had in the past, although I'd like to hear what services we have from the past that we want to carry forward. But I'd like to hear from town board people, town staff people about what are you going to do technologically here, and not just expand our footprint. Thanks, that was long, but I had a lot of thoughts, and I'm old, and I've lived here a while. Thank you.
I am Kevin Ryan. I live up the hill in Rock Creek. Through this process, I've actually made some new friends here in Originaltown, so I've gotten to know a lot of you through email and phone calls and have enjoyed that. I'm one of the people that have published a couple of those surveys, so thank you for those. Those were unofficial, unsanctioned surveys, so thank you for responding. Echo most of the comments, I think. I think the important thing here is not just to slow it down, but to also do it right. If this is going to be a process and we're going to build and expand town hall, and these are the three options, and the board and the leadership is going to continue to have resistance to consider those other options of building across the street or up the hill or on Colton or probably 10 other options, frankly, I'm not sure we need to slow it down. So what I'm saying is not just slow it down, but also do this right and engage the community in not just looking at the paint chips, I like that analogy, but also considering those other options. And I'd ask the board and the town leadership, if you do feel resistant, I think this issue maybe caught some members of the town staff and the board by surprise, that the community felt this strongly. And that's okay. Now we need to listen to the community, let down those barriers a little bit, and consider some of those other options, and not just slow it down, but do it right. Thank you.
Hi, Brian Hill again. I think one of the tenets of this town hall expansion proposal was to congregate all of the town staff under one roof, or at least most of the office worker types. But I really wonder if that's a great thing to do. I wonder if it isn't better, given weather situations, flooding, snowstorms, who knows what may come, if it's not better to have staff put out in different locations to service the populations that use those services the more often. You could put certain functions up in the South Pool, or at the North Pool, or at the the water treatment facility, and really alleviate some of the traffic and accessibility issues that Suzanne mentioned earlier. And to echo what Suzanne mentioned about technology, I don't see why more of the applications and permits and registrations can't be put online. And you would get so much better metrics and a better feel for what people wanted, and analyzing. You have much easier way of analyzing what the community's needs were. And to speak to the sheriff's substation, it's in a way it's kind of pigeonholed back here. And if town center ever gets roaring, I mean, one would think that there's going to be a fair amount of traffic, at the roundabout here and at the Marshall intersection. And I just wonder if that's the best place. And what have been the historical locations of crime, if we have crime here? Where has that been, and where is it projected to be? You have 12,000 people up in the Rock Creek community up there. maybe it's better to have a substation up there, or, I don't know. I would just like to see some of these questions analyzed, if they haven't already been, and at least let's see the results.
Just a quick comment to that. I know in one of our meetings, the current developer, Bill Jenks, had a conversation with him, even expressed positive interest in having the police over in the new town center. I don't know whether he's still there. That was a conversation I had with him several weeks ago, and I think it's important to have that up there, that there was some interest expressed in having the police over in the town center area. And I know Pam's here. I don't know if that's changed at all, but
she left.
Oh, did she leave? Okay.
Okay, I got one more comment on that.
Let's see if anything else.
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, I just want to expound on Bob's statement just now about having a sheriff's substation down there. With the BRT station going in and a pretty dense town center going in, you're going to have kind of a different, you may need a different response mechanism. You may not just be having police cruisers parked in neighborhoods or at intersections up at Key Bank or what have you. You may need to dispatch bicycle-mounted deputies. They may need to service problems on the bike path. There may be issues down at the BRT that aren't easily accessed by a police cruiser. I just don't know. I would really like to see the Sheriff's Department address some of those concerns. Thank you.
So if we're going to get, Kevin Ryan, if we're going to get a little more specific about what that, and I love the idea of this starting to feel like brainstorming on good ideas and where should the sheriff's substation be, and hopefully this is in scope for these collaborative discussions. But from my perspective, I think there's two departments that don't belong in town hall. The sheriff's substation doesn't belong in town hall. Bad guys might target that substation. It doesn't belong in town hall from my perspective. It just doesn't. Number two, Parks and Rec. This is a wonderful community. If you choose to have your career in Parks and Rec, this is the best place to work. I can't imagine a better scenario of a Parks and Rec department in a Parks and Rec type facility. I believe that there's going to be some temporary space that's been offered over in the sports stable. Thank you, I forgot the name. Some temporary space in sports stable. What a great opportunity and a recruiting tool to say you could work here and then go lift weights or play hockey on your lunch break. I personally think that Parks and Rec should be more in the community, and I don't think housing them in cubicles or closed offices in a town hall is attractive, but I'd like to hear maybe from Parks and Rec on how they feel about that. And so now when you start thinking about the need for square footage, if you took out those two departments, which again, I don't believe the substation should be here, and I don't believe Parks and Rec has to be here, I think the requirements for an expansion start looking a lot different. But that's part of the conversation around, let's get this right.
Ross Morgan again. Following up on some of Suzanne's comments, I was really glad to hear your comments, Suzanne, on the fact that this project and the town belongs to all of us. And I was afraid that when I spoke up earlier about being a 40-year resident, having started out in the little town of 90 houses, that I sounded like I resented our neighbors in Rock Creek or Sagamore. And I've developed many friends in both areas over the years. I served on the original Planning and Zoning Commission, as it was called back then, when we originally zoned the land that's just original town. And then later on, I served on the Planning and Zoning Board after Rock Creek was built, and helped prevent a church with a 50-foot steeple from being built on the ridge. Nothing against churches, but they wanted to build a bunch of tall buildings around it, and we tried to preserve the view for the folks in Rock Creek. And I convened a citizens group in the 80s when, as I mentioned, when the Tiff and Sura area was coming into play, that eventually resulted in the Target and Costco shopping center. We collaborated, people from Old Town and Rock Creek, to try to preserve some of the wildlife corridor and help to steer that project so that it was more appealing to all of us. And so I really do believe that this is a town-wide concern, and that I just wanted to say I appreciate everybody from all parts of town who are here tonight. Thank you.
So before the next hand goes up, I just want to, it's about 7 minutes after, we're going to go 7:30, but if some of you are being very quiet, and I just want to make sure that you're getting an opportunity to say something if you'd like to. So if you haven't said anything yet and you want to add something in now, I'm just going to kind of open that up, and we'll get back to people who are going to say more as well. Here we go.
I always have an opinion on everything. Hi, my name is Pauline. I live up in Rock Creek, and I agree. I totally think that the police, we should look at where they should go. That makes sense. I feel like banging my head against the wall. I've lived here for 11 years. We do not have a library. We never have money for a library. I cannot believe the things that we're going to spend more money. This is a beautiful building. And you know, I've worked for Boulder County, and guess what? They are spread out. Sometimes you have to go to a meeting that's like 40 minutes away. And guess what? It's really nice. It's a beautiful place to live. It's really nice to get in your car and go outside and not be stuck in a building all day long. I think we have so much empty space that, you know, that's vacant right now that we could work with that. And if we have $2.5 to $3 million, why are we not building a library? I mean, it feels like a teenager, you know, that needs to like pay their car insurance bill, and instead they're going out and buying video games. It just is so frustrating to me. There. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Diane Hughes, 104 West William Street, right across the street. And I just want to agree, I think that this would be a beautiful building for a library and for a community center. I would just love to see something like that here. I think it would be less traffic than some of the other things that we could do with this property. And I also agree that the sheriff's substation belongs across the street. It does not belong in a neighborhood of single-family homes. My concern is that you would have an entity that would be open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. It would never shut down, and I have real issues with the traffic and the inconvenience that would result from that.
Thank you. Okay, we'll open it back up for anybody. What would you like to say that hasn't been said?
Hi, Clint Folsom again. I'll respond to a couple of items that have been said. You know, so this whole issue came to us board as a space problem. You know, our town's been fortunate to grow, and our staff has grown to meet the needs of the community. And so we were faced with an issue from staff that said, we're full. We're full here at Town Hall. We've got temporary space in the marketplace. We're all spread out. And, you know, do you want to do something about it? And we as a board said, yeah, that probably makes sense. It probably makes sense to have greater efficiency in staff, greater efficiency in in the community and people that are coming to interact with us. So we went ahead with authorizing design. And, you know, we all live here in the community too, and I think one of the hardest parts of serving as an elected official is not being able to make everybody happy. I mean, I think we, as humans, we want to make decisions that make people happy with us and happy with the decisions that you're making. But unfortunately, that's, as an elected official, you're going to have to be put in positions where that's not always possible. You know, my own views of where we are in this process is I think we've got a unique opportunity as a small town of 13,000 people, approximately 4 square miles. That's not a big town. And we've got a unique opportunity to put everybody under the same roof. Right now, they're not under the same roof. They're all spread out. And I think a big issue with traffic cutting through over to the marketplace is town staff and people coming and going. I mean, these ideas of telecommuting and working from home, they're all great, but I've interacted with the staff here enough to know that there are a lot of jobs that you need to have face-to-face meetings. You need to be able to collaborate, and when you're spread out over there, you got to come to meet with people. So we are a lean staff. We outsource a lot of things. We outsource our police. We have a fire district. We have a lot of great contractors that live here in town and do a lot of our services. So we have a very small staff for a town of 13,000. So a big part of maintaining that efficiency with such a small staff is to have them under the same roof. And I continue to think that the sheriff's office, I think they're all a part of it. I mean, it's our duty to provide space to the sheriff's office. So whether we provide space here at Town Hall or somewhere else, it's our duty. That's part of our contract with the sheriff's office, is to provide space. I mean, a little history, those of you who live here in original town know that sheriff's substation used to be here, and the fire station just down the road. And they even used to have a jail there. I mean, imagine if we were proposing to put a jail here. Well, guess what? It's already been here. And you know, as the county developed, the jail moved to the central spot. So, I mean, it's a long time ago, but it's...
That was 90 years ago.
So it has been here. Then it moved to Fire Station 5 into a closet, which I worked out of for a few years. And then so it's moved around. Right now it's in month-to-month space, which to me is a little scary proposition, that we've got our law enforcement in a month-to-month space that might have to move, and then we'd be scrambling to find somewhere for it. Public Works is next door in a former bridal shop. I mean, back to Ross's point about the video and Bob's point about the video, I was one of the ones that encouraged that video to be made. It was not made to be propaganda. It was made to give people a visual. I mean, we're a very technological-oriented society that likes to click on videos and see things. I wanted people to have a picture of what what the working space was like. Maybe it came across as, I didn't produce the video. I just gave the idea. Hey, maybe a video might be an idea to show people what the working conditions are like. So that was the only point there. There's no propaganda intended. It was just simply trying to give some information. The other thing, a question was raised too, Brian. You raised a question about what have you done to put stuff in writing about why is this justified? I wrote several pages of questions and answers, and it was presented, I think, in the June Sentinel, and that's online and accessible, and several months back. But I spent many hours writing that, and it does, maybe it doesn't answer every question, and maybe you don't agree with it, but at least it's out there, and some information's out there, just in an attempt to do better. So, okay, Daryl's tired of hearing me talk, so.
Yeah. So I appreciate your comments. I just do wonder, in 2013, what happened when the board voted on a budget to not do anything over there and wait for town center, and then and actually to go and look for temporary space. It's in writing. I mean, it's documented that that's exactly what they wanted to do. So I appreciate your comments, Clint, but I do believe that 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 was the point at the time, and I want to go back to Kevin's idea that let's do this right. You know, we are a voice of the people. We are here to say we want to slow this process down and we want to do it right. And I hope that our elected officials are listening.
Go ahead, and then I'm going to
Dave again from 208 West William. I'll say, Mayor, that I was asked many more times for my opinion of what we should name Settlers Park than I was for whether or not we should develop this property as expanded town hall. And I'll also say that I was really hoping to hear you say that you heard us. And what I heard instead was, and I don't blame you. We're all human, you know, for being put on the defensive. I felt like you were acting from the defensive, but I really want my mayor to, especially when we're all gathered here on an evening that we all have other things to do, and when we are arguably after the fact. We walked in here and we were told that we're operating under the presumption that we're discussing what we like about this plan, when, you know, obviously that was premature. So I understand that you might be on the defensive, but I want my mayor, I want my elected officials to at least repeat what we said so that we know that you heard us, and not necessarily come back with, well, it's a unique opportunity and the other things that I just heard. So I hope that going forward, not only will we have a more meaningful, substantive dialogue here on this issue, but I hope that the town learns from this and in the future addresses issues such as this more with more engagement from the community.
No, thanks for the comments. And I apologize if I came across as defensive. Certainly didn't mean that. I enjoyed the opportunity last week to come to Diane's backyard and meet, you know, individually with a lot of residents. And so I did, you know, I do listen, and I've absolutely have heard all the concerns and appreciate them. So appreciate the ongoing dialogue.
Hi, Patricia again. I just want to offer, I want to echo about Kevin's idea that it should be done right and Suzanne's idea that it should be done, you know, fiscally responsibly. And I'm not sure if the town hall needs to be expanded or not, but I would want to offer the perspective that I don't think it's an either we get a library or a town hall. You know, maintenance things, people never want to spend money on maintenance things, and I think town government sometimes falls into that sort of maintenance area, and I would want to ask the question, if we feel that it's time to expand it, then we should look at that and not necessarily just keep putting it off because we don't want to spend the money. We never want to spend the money, even in our own budgets, for doing things we have to do.
This is Bob McCool again, and I want to echo, I really agree that if we need expansion, or if we need to put everybody under one roof, let's look at that. I don't think any of us, or at least anyone I've spoken to, doesn't want to figure out what the right solution is for our staff to be in either under one building, if that makes sense, or whatever other opportunities we have to create efficiencies. I think we're all there. We're a growing town. We've got potentially probably, 3,000 maybe more residents could show up here in the next 5 to 7 years. We need to be thinking seriously about our town hall and our town staff. But what you're hearing today, and I got to echo, I was disappointed. I expected to hear, yes, we heard you and we're going to listen to you. We want input. This is an area that's really important obviously, to a number of people, and you've seen that over the years where residents come together and we speak up when something doesn't look right to us, and something just doesn't look right to us. and we're coming together. We don't do this over every little issue that comes before town hall. Sometimes you get 5 people down here. Today, you're getting a lot. You're getting a lot of people who are saying something's wrong. And that doesn't mean that we don't want our town staff to be together under one roof, if that makes sense. We're screaming because we don't feel like it makes sense here, that we've got a residential area that we'd really like to be respectful of, and it feels to many of us that that's not happening. We understand the change, we understand the growth, we're dealing with heavy amounts of traffic that we just didn't really anticipate. We're just getting hit from all sides, and we want some attention to this, and we want to slow down and think about what our opportunities are. So I think we're all in support of our town staff and making sure that they get what they need. I think it's head nods everywhere I'm looking. That's not the question. The question is, where does it belong? Is it the right thing to do? And you've got a community who's speaking up because they feel like something's doesn't feel right, and begging the town board to listen and be thoughtful about this.
Sandy Hammerly again. And one of the things that I think we would all feel more comfortable if we were making decisions based on data as compared to gut reactions. I'm a director of finance, and I don't let people spend money without having the case built why we need to do this. And one of the very simple ways to do it would be to really start asking questions. Why do people come to town hall? How often do they come to town hall? What services do they request? So we really have a good sense of, what are the needs of this building? And as I said earlier, do people have to be in the same place to access the services? So, would it be possible to really survey the people who come to town hall for the next 30 or 60 days and ask them, how often have you been to town hall? What was the experience like when you came here? Was it easy to access the building? Things like that. So let's collect some more data about if we really are doing this, part of the reason is to respond to the needs of our citizens. Let's really do a little more research on who's coming here and how much of the services that they need. Are folks actually doing a lot more business with us online than they are in our brick and mortar buildings. So let's just get some more data so we can make some valid decisions.
Suzanne Sawyer-Ratliff again, and I just want to really support the several voices that have said separate space for separate functions. I think that has a lot to do with efficiency. So I probably have a different perspective about everything going under one roof. And those of you who know me know I always like to bring up something a little humorous, but when my son from LA pops into town intermittently, I live in a small home, and one bedroom where he sleeps is on the opposite end of the house from my room. And in the morning I wake up to a text message that says, how's it going in the north side of the house this morning? So I guess I want to come back to this thing of we email a lot, we text a lot, and I am pretty sure town hall people do this as well. And there's a lot of communication going that way. But when we're talking about separate space for separate functions, I want to really speak strongly from personal experience, and I'm not going to spell this all out. Our Boulder County Sheriff's Office, I believe, so strongly needs a separate space, and we've heard that quite a bit tonight. I don't want to see that as part of town hall and town staff. And Matt, I guess I'd say to you, I don't see a real reason why town staff members need to be all up close and personal with our Boulder County Sheriff's people on a daily basis. There are things going on there that are so private and so personal and so separate, and I strongly support everybody who said keep that separate. It's just a majorly different function. And then the data piece. The data piece came from back here. I'm sure there's a lot of data that has to do with where are the crime areas in our town. And I love this piece about whether it's cars, whether it's bikes, you know. I'm going to go to New York City soon. I'm going to see horses. I don't think probably we're not going to see horses here for our Boulder County sheriffs, but I think that we are changing, and we are going to need a different kind of function, and we are going to need very fast access to McCaslin, undoubtedly, and I'd rather see our sheriff's presence in multiple places instead of just one, definitely not within town hall. Who would like this?
Chris Hansen, trustee. So first, I want to thank Chris Trapinski for moderating this meeting. I mean, based on our experience over the last 6 years, we've had some very contentious meetings, and this could have gotten way out of hand. So I think Chris has done a phenomenal job on keeping this on track. Also, I do want to come to the mayor's defense a little bit. We are listening. I've got 4 pages of notes, everybody's comments. I've got your names down here and what everybody commented on. So we will be reviewing these in addition to what Chris Trapinski has written down. Some of the takeaways from tonight. I never really thought about Rogers property and maybe moving town hall there. I think that's a great idea to look into. We have had minor discussions about the different uses for the Colton and McCaslin property there. I would imagine that we'll run into just as much resistance putting town hall there that we're having here. But there are other properties that we could look into, so that I think this is good. There's some places that we should look at. I do think that we need to evaluate everything, because I do think cost is going to be a big factor in there. It's going to cost considerably more to build a brand new building from the ground up somewhere else. But I agree, let's look into it and let's get you the hard data on it. My personal opinion, I think that it should be here. I wasn't here in town on the board when the property was purchased, but I do think it makes a lot of sense to expand out here. But I am sensitive to the needs of the residents in the area. But I'm just one voice, I'm one person. We need to hear from everybody, and I agree with that. We have a large contingent of original town residents here tonight, and I'm wondering, would we have the same comments, the same sentiment, if we hold a town hall meeting at Superior Elementary like we've done with the parks, or at El Dorado K-8 like we've done with some of the other projects in town? So what does that tell me? That tells me that we do need to reach out more to the community, and let's get Rock Creek residents involved, and let's understand what they think. I know that town staff would like to see this happen sooner than later, and this probably isn't what they want to hear, but it's not about town staff, and I get that. It's about the residents and doing this right, and I agree that we should slow this down and do this the right way. But trust me, you guys are being heard. I think we did move a little fast. I'm just as guilty as of that, because I thought this was our job. If we see a need to expand town hall and get our staff under the same roof, I thought that was our job, that we were supposed to make those decisions for the residents. I guess I was wrong there, but we are hearing you, and we're making those decisions to do it a little bit differently.
Another thing is the sheriffs don't want you in that building. And if you put the sheriff's station here, I'm going to just walk in.
I can say for a fact that I know sometimes staff doesn't want me in the building. So. They want my office someplace else. Anybody else?
Did we capture it pretty well?
I want to say one more thing, if I may. Just real quick, I'm sorry again, it's Dave again. But Bob said that we're begging you, and I'm saying that we're demanding of you. And I agree with everything else Bob said, and I would just want to clarify that a little bit, because I think he probably agrees with me. We're demanding that that this thing take a different course, or at least that it's further deliberated before proceeding.
Sandy Pennington, trustee.
Chris, we got to move to the next step phase, right? What are we going to do with all this information? The purpose of this meeting was to have you residents speak and we trustees listen. And I believe everybody listened. That was the trustees' role at this meeting. So that's why you have heard not much from trustees tonight. Our job going forward is to synthesize and distill everything we heard tonight and aggregate it with everything we have heard in the past. And this is a number of years of information, and to aggregate it and determine a plan going forward. And that plan may be simply a number of future steps going forward before we arrive at a decision about what to do about any town hall needs. So give us the opportunity to sit down with each other and discuss all this and figure out a plan on how to proceed using the information put forth tonight. I also want to let you know there are 3 trustee spots up for up in the fall, and remain active politically and make sure you're heard with those candidates, many of whom are here tonight, by the way, and I'm very pleased with that. They've been listening too. So keep your voice being heard. Thanks.
One last thought in moving forward, not particularly with this subject, but with the problems that have been raised by this subject and this project, that could we take a look at creating a process where we citizens, especially the ones directly may be impacted as much as we see ourselves as being impacted. And I'm sorry, I've not said all night long. I'm Marcia Klump. I live down at 210 West William. That we could find a process where there could be a larger committee, larger meetings sooner. We don't mean to want to be involved in day-to-day affairs. That's not the point at all, and I think everybody thinks the town's run pretty darn well. But why, let us not get to this point. Let us find a way to have, I know some other towns in the area, Louisville, I think, I may be speaking out of turn, does a process where they really involve their citizens up front on big projects and things that are directly impactful to us. And I think it would just make us more cohesive as a town, more community-oriented, more communicative, on and on. Those great C words.
I'm sorry. Sandy, I hope that what we hear from the trustees next is a draft, some draft ideas with some options, and not necessarily another plan. I'd like another. I mean, there was some amazing input tonight that I think could really inform. And this is just to get together for 90 minutes. That could really inform an effective use of our money and our land. And I'd like the trustees to open up the process a little bit further and keep it open as we move it forward.
Agreed.
Are we good? All right, well, we're a few minutes over, so we apologize for that, but glad to take that input, and we will summarize, we'll get it to the trustees, and we'll see what comes out of all of that. But thanks so much for your time tonight. I'll say thanks on behalf of the mayor and the trustees and staff, since I have the microphone. And let you all go. Thank you.